Zero. So learning as a schus refuah shlema for Ilana Chaya Baserach. We are on, I believe, Samach Amid Aleph. Yeah. Uh, 7 lines from the bottom. The last word on the line. Ma'atzra Zaira. This is talking about a wine press where they operated it. They basically pushed down a beam to crush the grapes by operating a screw. They would turn a crank and push down the beam. Rav Papi Shari, Rav Ashi, Vitem, Rav Sim, Rashi, Amar, Aser. He says it's awesome. So the first man, the Amar, Rav Zera, and Zeira, Rav Papi Shari, and the other man, the Amar says it's awesome. So the Gemara has two explanations. Where he had pushed down and caused the grapes to come out, then everyone would agree that it's going to be awesome. That means if he were to, like, instead of having a screw that he's turning and pushing down on the beam, he literally stands on it and like we said, he jumps on it. Then it would be awesome. Ki pligi b'kayach kayach. The machlaikas is now we're going to have it's not clear in the Rishonim what the Isser is. Does the Isser mean just the Isser that he can't drink it, or is it Isser that he can't even have enough from it? But Pashtus, what we have from Rashi, it sounds like he says that it would be Asr even Bahana. But so he says that's not what we're talking about. The machlekes is in the case like we have, where he's not applying direct force, but rather he's turning a crank, which pushes a screw, which then pushes down on the grapes. So he's not actually moving the grapes directly. So then it's not then there's no that's the machlekes. So will the chum geyser on that or not? Some say that everyone would agree that if it's not the direct force, if it's attenuated, where he does something which causes something else to crush the grapes, that it's going to be mutter. The machlekes is only in the case where it was done, like we said, with the screw, because the question is, his kayach, do we consider it to be kayach kaychai? Lamaisa, he's causing the grapes to be crushed, and then do you say that that's considered to be kaychai? So according to the Manama says it's mutter. According to the Manama says also you would consider this to be kaychai. According to the other Manama, no. In the end, the kayach that comes from pushing the screws, even though that's a direct kayach on the grapes, there still has to be a second kayach that takes the grapes and causes the wine to come out of it. So therefore, they would say that is mutter. Zaktumar, have the ovda b'kayach kaychai. There was a case where it was taka, not direct kayach, but a secondary force. But also Rabbi Yaakov min HaPekoid. Rabbi Yaakov min HaPekoid said it's awesome. Zaktumar, hahu chavita de'ifka la'archa. There was a barrel filled with wine that split along its height, along its length. Idri hahu Ovid Gechavim. Ovid Gechavim jumped up and grabbed the two halves of the barrel and pulled them together. Chavka, he hugged it, so to speak. He held it together. Shar Yiraf from Rav Papa Vitema Rav Huna Breder of Yeshua Lizvuni L'Ovid Gechavim. One of this Amayra said it's okay to have hana from it. Could still be sold to an Ovid Gechavim. So even in spite of the fact that he's exerting force on the barrel, and that barrel then is moving the or holding the wine together, he held it was mutter. I'm going to explain why. That's only because it was split lengthwise. But if it was opened from on top or on bottom, or I guess it was somehow split. It opened up for its height, meaning that it cut the barrel in half horizontally. Afilu b'shtiya shari. In that case, it would even be mutter to drink. It wouldn't just be mutter to have hana, but it would be mutter to drink. My time. Why is it? My salavena ka'avid. When he holds it down, when it's split along its length, so he's this, well, like we said, Lagabi, the lulav, and we've said Lagabi, when he's measuring, we saw all these different dinim that whenever he touches wine, even through something else, that's going to be usher. So he touched the wine through something else, so which makes it usher b'shtiya, but mutter b'hana. It's as if he stuck his finger into the wine. It doesn't make a difference what his intentions are, even though obviously over here has nothing to do with nisach. He's not trying to be avodah Zara, but it's still going to be mutter bahana, even though it's aser b'shtiya. But in the second case where it's split, that the top or the top half, let's say, of the barrel was going to fall off, and the guy comes and sits on it, the way the Gemara says it is as if he's a brick. He's not touching. He's just using his weight to hold the barrel together. That's not considered like he touched what's inside the barrel. So therefore, it's mutter even b'shtir. They found a Oivik Kechavim that was hanging around, standing next to this wine press. A wine press that belonged to a Yid, and he had his wine in it. Amravashi, if and that the wine, there's no wine in the wine press, but it's wet because it had previously had wine. So you say if there's enough teifach latfiach is it's a drip or a liquid that can make something else wet. So then boy hadachu boy nikov. It needs a extra type of washing out, like the Rashi says, niguv offeru mayim v'offer. And the Parshas we're going to explain in another couple of weeks that when something has actual liquid that's yayin nesach, it's not enough just to wipe away the liquid. You have to also scour it with some ash to get out the liquid that's in it, that's inside the barrel. Because when the guy touched it, there was an actual liquid there. That's enough to make it that what's in the walls of the wine press also became yain nesach, and you got to get it out. V'loi, but if it's just moist without enough to make something else moist, so that's not a significant, not a substantial amount of liquid. So when the guy touches it, it doesn't actually become yain nesach because there's not enough there. Then all you need to do is rinse it out. Sagt the Mishnah, Oived Kechavim shenimsa oimed b'tzara bar shel yain. An Oived Kechavim that was found standing on the side of a barrel, I'm sorry, not a barrel, a pit filled with wine. Im yeshle malva olav. So this is talking about a Yid has his wine there, and you find the guy standing next to it. Im yeshle malva olav asa. If now. Hold on a second. Let me remember why this is. Right. So this case, we have to explain why this is different than the previous case. The previous case we just said that you have to suspect that Oived Kechavim touched the little bit of liquid that was in the wine press. So he said that's a specific din over there, because since it's empty, the Oived Kechavim doesn't see anything wrong with touching it. But an Oived Kechavim that's found next to a bar of yayin that belongs to a Yid, he knows if he touches it, like we said before, he's going to cause that yayin to become asur. So he's going to be scared. He's going to get in trouble if he touches it. So we say generally the rule is that it's going to be mutter because the Ovid Kechavim won't touch it. But im yesh le malva alav aser. But if he has if the guy is owed money by the yid, and as the Gemara is going to explain, it's talking about where he has a lien on this wine. So he looks at it, listen, if I touch the wine and it becomes aser, worst comes to worst, so I'll just have to take the wine as my payment for the loan. So if the yid owes the guy money, and this wine, as the Gemara will explain, is the lien, there's a lien on that wine, then it's also because the guy is not so scared to touch it. Malva alav mutter. But the typical case, when there's no halva on that particular wine, or that wine the guy doesn't feel it belongs to him, it's mutter because the guy doesn't want to get in trouble for touching a yid's wine and answering it. Now the Gemara is Mishnah is going to bring a bunch of examples where someone touched yayin unintentionally, nafal labar, or without intent to be menasach. Nafal labar va'ala. If a guy fell into a yid's wine and then he came out, madadai bekana, he measured it with a stick. Hit is as atzira bekana, he hit a bug that was on the wine with a stick to get it out. Matfiach al pichavis merisachas. If there was a barrel of wine that was foaming, and he flicked away the foam. B'chol elu hayamaisa. All these cases, these all happened. The Gemara says bebeishan v'amru yimacher. They said it should be sold, meaning that it's aser b'shtiya, like we've said for many times, that anything that's touched by a yid, any wine that belongs to a yid that's touched by a guy, the din is that it's aser b'shtiya. But it's mutter b'hana. So all these things, and like we've said also, like the case of the lulav or the barrels that we just had previously, even if it's touched through an intermediary, if he uses an object to touch it, that's going to have a din that he touched it, and therefore it's going to be aser b'shtiya, he can't drink it. Rav Shimon matir. Rav Shimon says it's mutter altogether, like the Gemara is going to say. Rav Shimon holds either it's aser if we're worried about nisuch, then it's aser even to bahana, and if we're not worried about nisuch, then it's mutter to drink. That's Rav Shimon's shita. Notal as hachavis v'zarka b'chamasai. If the guy got angry and he threw the barrel into a bar full of wine, that happened, and they were matter. The Gemara will explain exactly what it means. This is, first of all, it's zrika. He didn't touch it directly. He threw something, and he did it b'chamasai, so it's clear that he didn't intend to do it for nisuch. And the Gemara says it's kosher. Amar Shmuel, we said that if there's a halva on the guy has a halva, if he's owed money by the yid, then it's going to be aser. So Shmuel clarifies, like we said, that it's only where there's a halva that the guy can then be goiva. He can get that wine if he doesn't get paid back for the loan. So therefore, the guy already feels like he owns it and he's not scared to touch it. It also seems like that from the Mishnah. It's none. There's the next Mishnah on Amud Aleph, on the next Amud. Hamatar yena shel eved kechavim. Someone who is supervising a guy as he makes wine to make that the guy's wine should be able to be sold to Yidden. So he's making sure that the yayin of the eved kechavim is not touched by the guy and there's no problem, so he could sell it to a Yid. The nice nebishusai, and he puts it into the rishus of the kaisav. And the guy writes to him, I already received the money from you for this wine. So now belongs to the Yid, mutter. In that case, it's mutter, because the guy, like we said, is going to be scared to touch something that belongs to the Yid. If the Yid if the Yid should want to take the wine, and the guy would not allow him, it means he didn't say skabalti mimcha mois, and and now it's yours. It belongs to you, the yid. But rather, the guy has control over it, and he could stop the yid from taking it. Then the din is ad sheyitin lo ma'asav. He's not, and he say he's not. I'm not going to let you touch it until you give me the money. So in that case, it's us. The Mashmai says time of the emenicha. The reason why it's us is only because the guy would not allow him to touch it. Haminichai, as long as the yid had already given him the money, or as long as the yid had already gotten a paper that says that it was sold to him, as long as the wine is not mishubed to the guy, that the guy can seize it, shari shmamina milval yayin be'inan shmamina. So that shows you that it's only when that the loan is dependent is creates a lien on the wine. But if it's just a generalized loan, like we said, where the guy can't stop him from going to take the wine, then it would be mutter. So you see that from our Mishnah, the next Mishnah. Our Mishnah said, Nafal Labar Ba'ala, one of the examples of a guy who touched wine, but didn't, without intention to be menasach, was if he fell into the wine and then he got out. He's only talking about where he came out as a dead person. But if he came out while he's alive, then it's awesome. He says it's very likely at that point that he's going to be benasach the wine. He's going to be making a day of celebration. He's going to bench Gaimel that he survived falling into the pit of wine and not drowning. So we have to be extra. We have to have an extra chash that he was menasach, and therefore it's going to be awesome. Zakt Gemara, Madadu b'kana kalelo hayamaisav ami yimcha v'Rav Shimon Matir. We said all these different cases. The last one was if he measured it with a stick. That is, on all these, we said that the din is that it has to be sold because it's also b'shtiya and mutter b'hana. But Rav Shimon says it's even mutter b'shtiya. Amar Avoda barava yenuchaloi l'Rav Shimon brachas al roishe. He said Rav Shimon should have brachas on his head. He's gebenched. He didn't mean it sarcastically. He meant it seriously. And he said, "Kishu mate afilu b'shtiya, kishu oiser afilu b'hana." Rav Shimon is saying that it's mutter. The first man, the Amar, who said it's aser, only said it's aser b'hana, but it's mutter. I'm sorry, it's aser b'shtiya, but it's mutter b'hana. Rav Shimon is coming to say it's even mutter b'hana. Amar Rav Chia Brei the Abba, because he holds that it all depends on whether there was a chance of nisuch, of whether the guy was mixing it for avodah zara. As long as it's not the case, Rav Shimon holds it's mutter. Amar Rav Chia Brei the Abba bar Nachmeni Amar Rav Chizda Amar Rav v'Amri Amar Rav Chizda Amar Ziri halacha Rav Shimon. They said the halacha is like Rav Shimon. Igdami Rav Chizda Amali Abba bar Chanan Hachi Amar Ziri halacha Rav Shimon. He also said the halacha Rav Shimon. But the Gemara ends ve'ein halacha Rav Shimon. In spite of all these Amoraim saying that halacha is like this, the Misadrim of the Shas said Rav Chia and Rav Hishia, who was it? Rav Chia and Rav Ashi, I think, said the halacha is not like Rav Shimon. Notel chavis v'zarka b'chamasa labar zeha ma'isa v'chshir. We said at the end of the Mishnah that there was a story that someone took a barrel full of wine. A guy took a barrel full of wine and out of anger he threw it into the bar and they were machshut. Amar Rav Ashi, kol shebezav tamei ba'ovid kechavim oise yayin nesach. Kol shebezav tar ba'ovid kechavim ein oise yayin nesach. Rav Ashi says that the din of yayin nesach is going to parallel that of a zav. A zav, the din is if he touches something, a man who becomes a zav, when he touches something, whether he does it through his hand or he uses a lulav or some other intermediary to directly touch something, it's going to be tameh. But if he throws, it's not metama. It has to be a direct application of force. It can't be through zrika. So he says the same din. Rav Ashi is saying he'll have the same din. Legabi yayin nesach, that if a guy throws something, it's not going to make it awesome. Ace Feder from Rav Ashi, he asked from our Mishnah. Natalas achavis v'zarka b'chamasi lebar. Zeh beishan v'chshirei. We said that if someone took a guy took a barrel and he threw it in because he was angry, then it's going to be mutter. B'chamasi inshallah b'chamasi lo. It's mashma only because he did it out of anger, so we know he wasn't doing it to be menasech. But if he threw it and his intention was to be menasech, then it would be awesome. So l'chayr that's mashma that even though it was being thrown, it wasn't being touched directly. So how is that similar to a zav, where if it throws it, no matter what its intentions are, it's going to remain tar. So Gemara Hasam the Gazal Minei Minei says no. The Mishnah, even though it said Zarak, it doesn't mean that he threw it. It means he threw it, but he followed through, like he was holding it as it went into the wine, like he pushed it with force, but he was still touching it when it touched the wine. So that's why if it wouldn't have been bechamasai, it would have been asa. But since it was bechamasai, that was he didn't have an intention to be menasech, and therefore it's mutter. Sagt the Mishnah, Hamitar yene shel evet gechavim, v'noisnei bereshusai. There's the Mishnah that we mentioned before, a yid who is supervising a guy to make that the guy can make his wine and it should remain tar, and he leaves the wine into the reshus of the Ovid Kechavim. Bibayis, I think it changed. What did we change this? Yeah, bibayis hapasuach l'shus harab. If the storehouse where the guy is keeping the wine is open to the reshus harab, be'ir sheyesh ba'ovid Kechavim Yisraelim, and it's a city that has both Yidden and Goyim, mutter. Then it's mutter, because since it's open to the Shurabim and Yiddim live there and they pass by, they'll see if the guy enters into the storehouse, and the one thing he doesn't want to do is ruin his wine that he intends to sell to Yidden. If he knows if the Yidden see him going in there, they're going to raise a hue and cry, and it's going to ruin all his wine. Be'ir shekula avdei kechavim, if it's a city that's full of avdei kechavim, then it's aser. Ad sheyeshev, ad she, we have to see, they changed this again. Aser, aleph, ad sheyeshev shomer. It's going to be aser until he places a watchman on the wine, because it's all avdei kechavim. There's no one to complain if the owner goes in and is menasach the wine. Ve'ein Hashem b'tzarech liyas yoshev u'mishamer, aval pishehu yotze v'nichnas mutter. The shomer does not have to be one who stands guard 24/7. Doesn't have to be a mashgiach tmidi. Just has to be yotze v'nichnas. This is the famous yotze v'nichnas, that he has to come in and out, and the guy doesn't know when he's going to come in, so therefore he'll have a mirsus, and he won't be menasach the wine. Shimon Elazar Aimer, Rishus Avdei Kechavim Achasi. Shimon Elazar says the Rishus Avdei Kechavim is all one. The Gemara will explain what does that mean. What is he referring to? There's going to be two diametrically opposite pshatim, whether he's coming to say lahachmir or lahak. Zok the Mishnah weiter. Hamitar yenei shel Avdei Kechavim. This is the same case like we said at the beginning of the Mishnah, where someone is producing, he's supervising a guy's production of wine. And he leaves it in his reshus. And the guy writes to him that I already received the money for this wine. It means he didn't actually get the money, but he gives the yid that it's now yours, and now the yid owes him the money, and the yid owns the wine. So it's different than the previous case where we had said that it still belonged to the guy. Now it belongs to yid. Mutter. In that case, it's mutter. If the yid will want to be mitzvah, if the guy will say, listen, I wrote the thing that says that I owe you the money, but you gave me the money, but you didn't actually give it to me. Until you give me the money, you can't touch the wine. In that case, then the wine is still not in the reshus of the yid, and therefore it's going to be aser in spite of the fact that it's open to the public. Since the guy feels that it's his, he's going to do whatever he's going to do whatever he wants. Okay. Zok the Gemara. Be'ir shekula evdike nami. The Mishnah says, our Mishnah said that if you put wine, if a yid puts his wine, right, if a yid puts wine that's in the house of Ovid Kechavim, if it's open to the city, it means in Rishus Harabim, and there are yid in there, it's going to be mutter. But we said B'yeshakula of the Kechavim nami. The Gemara is asking, why is it only if there are yidden in the city is it going to be mutter? Well, it should be even if it's all goyim. There are peddlers, Jewish peddlers that come into the city, and they're going to see if he goes into the house and fiddles with the wine. Amar Shmuel be'ir sheyesh lo dolasayim ubriach. We're talking about a city that has bars and bolts. So at night they lock it up, and then there's only the goyim around. So therefore we're worried that the guy's going to go and mess up the wine by bimenasach. Rav Yosef v'chaloin kushurabim dami. Rabbi Yosef says, although we said it has to be open to Sharam, it doesn't mean it has to have a door opening to Sharam. Even if there's a window that Yidden can see in, it's also going to be good. For Ashpa Kushisharam Dami. Similarly, a Ashpa place, a dump, a town garbage dump where people come all the time. If it's near that, then it's also like a Rosh Hashanah. The Dikla Kushisharam, even if there's a date tree next to the place where the guy stores the wine, it's also like Rosh Hashanah because Yidden will have reason to go there to pick the dates. Pasuk Reisha, if the head of this is not the Psik Reisha that we always talk about, or Lagabi Einim Miskaven. This is Pasuk Reisha, where you cut off the head of the date tree so it doesn't have any fruit. Pligi Baravachav Ravina. They argue. Chad Asar v'Chad Shari. One says it's going to be Asar, one says it'll be Mutter. Man Asar, Lamalei Desalakasim. The one who says it's Asar is because it says it's not a Shuram, and all you have is this date tree, and you cut off the head of the date tree, so it no longer produces fruit. There's no reason for a yid to go there. So it's as if it was in a Rosh Hashanah. It's secluded, no one's going there. Uman Shari Zimnin da Avdale Behema Vasalakul Basra. A date tree still will have traffic because people will go climb up it to look for their animals from the top of the date tree. Tanarabban, Echad Alekeach, the Echad Hachsoicher Beis Bechatzeri Shel Ovid Gechavim, whether someone rents or buys a house that's in a chotzer of Ovid Gechavim, belongs to a guy, Umelu Yayin, and he filled his storage shed that he rented from the guy or he bought from the guy, filled it with wine. There's a yid living in that chotzer, mutter, then it's mutter because again, the guy will not go into the yid's rishus and fiddle with it because he knows there's a yid who will see him and snitch. Even though the yid, either of the yid, neither the one who lives there or the one who owns it, don't have a key that keeps or a seal that keeps the guy out, there's a mirsus, he's going to be scared to touch it because he knows he'll get caught and he'll get in trouble. If the yid, if there's no yid living in the same chatzar, he lives in another chatzar, mutter, it's still going to be mutter. That's only where the yid does not have the yid does have, it's going to be mutter as long as the yid has a key or a seal, because then the guy is going to have to go to the trouble of breaking the lock or faking the seal. So it's going to be he's going to be reluctant to do so. The first case was where a yid was sealing a yid's wine. Now we're talking about the second part of the brayso talks about where the yid is supervising the guy's wine. That means the guy is making his own wine, but he wants to keep it kosher for yid. The Yisrael dar ba'oisa chatzar, and the Yid lives in that chatzar, mutter. It's mutter. But in this case, there has to be a key or a seal locking out the guy, because since it belongs to the guy, he's not as scared of being snitched on. All he'll lose is the value, but he won't get in trouble for damaging someone else's property. Amalei Rav Yochanan Latana Tani Aval Pisha Emaftech V'Chaysim B'Yadei Mutter. Rabbi Yochanan interjected. We're going to resume talking about the brisa, but he said you have the wrong nusach in the brisa. It really said it doesn't have to have a mafteh chaysim. As long as there's a yid there, even though it belongs to the guy, it's still going to be mutter, because he's going to be afraid of the yid telling everyone that he ruined the wine and then he'll lose the valuable wine. B'chatzar achares. Then the brisa continues. That was the case where there was a yid in the same chatzar. But if the yid is in a different chatzar, aser afa pishem afteach v'chaysim biyadei. The Tanna Kama says it's going to be aser even though there is a key and a seal. There's no one around to see it on a regular basis. It belongs to the guy, so he's going to be very confident to open it up and ruin it. It's not going to help to have a chaysim biyadei. The Chum say it's aser until there is a shimer. Or until the watchman who goes around and makes a rotation comes at a regular time. The Gemara is going to ask that l'chayra is very easy to evade if it's someone who comes at a regular time. It doesn't seem like a good shmira. But the Gemara, we have an immediate problem with this, with Reb Meir. Chachamim ahai. We said divrei Reb Meir that we said afal bisham afteh v'chaysim biyadai. If the yid is in a different chatzar on the guy's wine, it's going to be aser, even though it's going to be aser, even though there's no mafteach, even though there is a mafteach for chaysim. And the Chachamim say until there's a shomer. That's the same thing as Rameir. Rameir says it's not enough to have a key and a lock. And the Chum say you have to have a shomer. That's really saying the two sides of the same coin. So tomorrow, ahai, what were the Chacham referring to when they said you have to get a shomer? Ilay mas seifa, if it's going on what we said immediately before that. The Rameir said a lock and a key is not good enough. If the yid lives in a different chatzar, Tanakama, not Meisakasa. That's the same as the Tanakama. Vela Aresha the Sefer, it's talking about the previous case where there was a yid living in that chatzar, but there were two versions. One said it's aser one says if you have a lock and a chaysim, it's not enough, and the other pshat said Rabbi Yochanan then said that even if it has a lock that is enough, then it was mutter. How could it be that the Rabbi Yochanan said it's even though there's no mafteach, the yid is enough, and the Chama is saying no, you have to have a shomer. They're jumping two steps. It doesn't seem likely that then Rabbi Yochanan, then the Chachamim are being chaylik to the other extreme. How could Rabbi Yochanan say that it's mutter even without a chaysim, and then the Chachamim are saying on it that you have to have a shomer? Vela Sefer Deresh. It's going on the previous case, not where it was wine that was owned by a guy, but rather wine that was owned by a yid. The Ka'amatanakam b'chatza acheres, where the yid lived in a different chatzar, and Tanakam said b'chatza acheres mutter v'hushim afteh b'chaysim b'yadai. The Tanakam said that it's going to be mutter if there's a lock and a key and a seal. Until it's a shamer that's appointed, or the guy who comes around on rotation to check. How could you say that it's either a shamer, a full-time shamer, or someone who comes occasionally? Someone who comes occasionally, they'll time it and go in when he's not looking. It's like you have to read it the other way around, and it means that there's someone who's coming who's not regular. He has a random schedule. Rav Shimon Elazar said the Rishus Avdei is what? Is he coming to be makel or to be machmer? So they have a machlokes of what Ziri said, whether he was makel or machmer. Kashem shebershusay acha aser, kach b'shus oived kechavim achar nami aser. The Tanna Kama is saying that just like if the guy would be aser if it was his own rishus, so too if it's in the rishus of a different oived kechavim. That means the guy would have to, the owner is storing it by a different oived kechavim. He's saying that it would be the same din, even though the guy then would have to break into someone else's storehouse to passel his own wine, it's still us. But chashin and legaimim, because we're chayish that the guy who he's breaking into, he'll make a deal with him. He'll say, "I'll let you go into mine if you let me go into yours when you're storing mine." Shimon Lazo, I'm medva mamur b'shusa. So what Rabbi Shimon Gamliel is saying, "B'medva b'shusa al b'shusa v'gechavim acha muta v'loy chashin and legaimim." And Rabbi Shimon Ben Lazo is saying, "No, it's all. Is it all considered one rishus? No." He's saying it's a lashon bitmiyah. It's only when it's in rishus. But rishus achar avichav machar muta v'loy chashin legaim. We're not chayish that they're going to make a deal and allow him to break into someone else's property. It's saying the other way around. It's only when it's his own rishus. That it's all one and they're all good. He is chayish legaim. Tanya Kabas the Nachman Amaziri lahachmer will bring a raya lahachmer of Shimon Laza kol rishus avdicham achasim ne'aramayim. The reason why it's all one rishus is because they are going to lie. They're going to support each other and they're going to do goimlin. They're going to do reciprocal laws. The Beit Parzik Rafila, there was a wealthy guy, the governor whose name was Parzik Rafila. He gave wine to watch Bershusai of his Aris. That's only where they both will reciprocate. One will hold for one day, and the other one will hold for the other. Maybe in this case, we don't have to worry that they're going to make a deal because the governor is much more powerful than his sharecropper, and they're never going to go do a the sharecropper is not going to watch for the sharecropper will watch for the governor, but the governor won't watch for the sharecropper, so they're never going to make a deal that the sharecropper will lie for the governor. Amalhu Rava, other Rava, even because the mandam says, you're not chayish. That's talking about where they're equal positions of power. The Arisa will never snitch on the governor. He's going to be too scared. He's going to always give answers for him and say that he never came, and therefore it will be usher, even if you generally hold ein chayshin al. Who krachad haviyasa becham Yisrael? There was a town that had kept the wine of Yidden. They found a guy standing by the barrels full of wine. If they're going to put him in jail, they're going to say, if they have laws that they're going to throw him in jail for ruining the Jewish wine because they want to keep their business up, then it's going to be mutter. So it's like Chol of Yisrael. Like I don't know if this is where it comes from, but that's the Hatter Moshe said on the Chol of Yisrael, that because the milk companies will get in trouble if they were to deceptively put in camel's milk or some non-kosher animals, so they'll go to jail, they'll be fined. So therefore, we can assume that it's all cow's milk, and we could even drink challah that wasn't washed by a yid. Shkoyach and Hadron Allah, Rabbi Yishmael had Hadron Allah.
Okay, have a good day.